Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue VA, Bridge Financial, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, the Chiro Speaking Company, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from a full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 657 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had an opportunity of interviewing Dr. George Auger. And if you want to hear our conversation about leadership and chiropractic digital brochures, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today I have George Auger on with me. 31 years as a chiropractor, 15 years teaching at Sherman. Did a lot of work fundamentally to found the Palmetto State Association for Chiropractic in South Carolina, and did some work with IFCO. I'm really excited to have you on to the show today. We're going to talk about a lot of great things with your background, your first career as an engineer and how that translates into being a chiropractor, and some other really cool topics that we have formatted for this conversation today. But before we get into your story as a chiropractor, I want to share everyone why we do what we do. And I think that having a fundamental why is why our show has become what it is today. And our big why is protecting the sacred trust, freedom of speech, medical freedom, family health freedom. Those are all fundamentals, I believe, that have to be said. If you are connected to a chiropractic student or a young DC, please share the show. Share the show to people that need to understand the philosophy of chiropractic and the big why of this profession. Because I know that a lot of these colleges out there have watered down the education, and they're taking philosophy out of the schools, and they're removing the lexicon from the chiropractic profession and say, you're going to hurt people, refer them out. And that's not the world that I want to perpetuate in and promote. So I think that we're doing a great service to chiropractic by protecting the sacred trust and keeping freedom of speech into this profession. We also philosophically believe in subluxation-centered chiropractic, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence. I know I shouldn't have to say that stuff, but a lot of these schools are losing their way, and they're not talking about these things. And chiropractic students are coming out of school, and they have no fundamentals on adjusting techniques, and they have no fundamentals on philosophy. So please share the show. And we do believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that, we create educated intelligence. And that's where we take this stream of consciousness to today. And episode 657 is George Auger. And I just want to say welcome to the show.
It is a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
And one of the topics that I didn't mention during that pre-intro was chiropractic digital brochures.
Mm-hmm.
I know we'll talk about that too, but let's start in 31 years in practice. What was your impetus as a second career to say, hey, this chiropractic thing sounds right for me?
Well, it actually, I've been under chiropractic care since I was 3 years old. Okay. So my uncle's a chiropractor. So chiropractic has been in my family. When it was time to go to college, and I must say, my uncle never, one time he said, George, you would make a great chiropractor. Just as simple as that. And that was it. Never put any pressure on me, never said anything again, but it always stuck in the back of my mind. Time to go to college. I am on a football scholarship at Rutgers University. And I go undecided my freshman year because I'm not sure. Do I want to listen to what my uncle said and go chiropractic, or do I want to go engineering because that was my other love at the time? And 4 years engineering, early 80s, coming out, making good money was just too much to pass up. So I went engineering. But chiropractic has always been in my life. After about 4 years in engineering, they were making some decisions for me. Was I going to stay technical? Was I going to go business, management? And I took option number 3. I said, I'm going back to chiropractic college. I mean, not back, but I'm going to chiropractic college. If I'm going back to school, I'm going to chiropractic college. And so I enrolled at Sherman, the only chiropractic college I ever considered going to.
So a long history of Sherman now. You went to college, became a chiropractor at Sherman, and now you've been teaching there for 15 years. Talk to me about what that experience has been like.
I always thought I would be a decent teacher. I always thought in the back, in my practice, I teach. I teach, I do workshops. I teach my patients the fundamental philosophy of chiropractic, of life, of health. I'm always teaching. I thought, I would love to give back to the students in the profession by teaching. The dean of academic affairs asked me at one point. He said, "If you came to teach at Sherman, what would you like to teach?" And my answer was, I didn't have to even think about it. My answer was spinal biodynamics. Why? Because I'm an engineer, the way the mechanics of the spine, people like Don and Deed Harrison, and I teach the ideal spinal model in spinal biomechanics. People like Vern Pierce have had big influences on my life. And I thought, that would be a great thing for me to do. So that's what I said. And what Dr. Joe D'Onofrio said at the time was, I'm teaching that. I said, well, whenever you want to give it up, just let me know. And it was probably 5 years later. Now I had a call in half an hour, Your Half Hour to Health radio show in the Greenville, South Carolina area that I did on Wednesday afternoons. I rearranged my schedule for that, and I lost that show to Mike Huckabee because they nationally syndicated him in my time slot. So within 2 weeks, it was amazing the way God works. Within 2 weeks, I get a call from Joe D'Onofrio, and this is 5 years later. Hey, I'm giving up spinal biodynamics. You want to teach it? I'm like, if you can fit it in on a Wednesday afternoon, I got time. So I just started teaching it, and been there ever since. I also teach an elective of the Pierce results system because, again, I mentioned Vern Pierce had a big influence on my chiropractic life. So that's the story. That's how I got there.
Well, a big message of our branding is learning from the greats. And it sounds like you've done a great job of learning from some greats, including your uncle, and then going to this engineer path. How do you feel like the engineer path has helped you line up with this chiropractic profession?
Yeah, probably one of the most, when patients find out that I was an engineer, they kind of ask that question. I answer that question a lot. And the biggest thing that I could say is the way that an engineer thinks, the way they analyze things, the way they see things. For me, because I'm a biomechanical type of guy, and when I approach chiropractic, it allows me to analyze the spine, I believe, at a much higher level than if I didn't have that background of how to think, how to analyze, how to break it down as an engineer. So I think it's really served me well in that particular arena. I was an electrical engineer. I know the nervous system is chemical electrical. Does that really translate? Not as much as you might think. It's more of how do you analyze something, and how do you break it down, and how do you figure out how to fix it, if you will. And that mindset has helped me out tremendously.
Well, I know earlier you mentioned something about Deed and Don Harrison and the biophysics world. How does spinal biodynamics go in accordance with their findings and their work?
So spinal biodynamics is basically two things. It's the mechanics of the spine, how the spine mechanically is structured, how the spine mechanically works, and then kinematics, the movement of the spine, how the spine moves. How does the occiput move on top of C1, C1 on 2, 2 on 3? How does that all work? That spinal biodynamics encompasses all of that. So very actually within the first week, we're talking about the structural integrity of the spine. And we talk about mathematical models, and which there were only 4 that have ever been published. And Don Harrison is one of those people. And so he comes up, and I actually have them read an article on the ideal spine that Deed wrote and answer some questions from that. So, everything we do in spinal biodynamics at Sherman College lays the foundation for everything that they're going to learn chiropractically as they move forward. Everything, every technique, everything that they learn from about chiropractic, not diagnosis of musculoskeletal conditions, but chiropractic has its foundation in this course, which is why I take it so seriously, and which is why I love it so much.
So you traded out a radio show for a teaching
I did.
position.
I did. Yeah.
And 30 years ago, also, you were part of the founding of the Palmetto State Association.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did you find that was an important part of bringing that to the profession?
That's a great question. Excellent question. I was out of school for a year. Okay.
I know.
1 year. Okay.
31 years in practice, 30 years as a Palmetto State Association.
Good in math. There we go. Yes. 1 year. So I get a phone call from none other Bill Decken. Okay. And Bill Decken says, "Hey, George, we need representation for the subluxation centered chiropractic segment of South Carolina. We don't have it." And he said, "I would like with you to start the Palmetto State Chiropractic Association." And my first words were, "Bill, I'm trying to get my practice off the ground. What are you doing to me here?" He's like, he said, I can't think of anybody that I would rather start it with. I said, "All right, I'm in." So we started it, and he was the first president, and I was the first vice president. And we started we incorporated it. I wrote a ton of bylaws, and that's kind of thing I like to write. So bylaws and things like that, and constitution, and we set it all in motion. 6 months, Jim, 6 months into this process, Bill calls me up again, says, "George, I got good news and bad news." Okay, Bill, what's the good news? The good news is I'm taking the position of the chairman of the at the time the FSCO, which is now the IFCO. I said, "That's awesome. Congratulations. What's the bad news?" "I'm resigning as president of the PSCA, which means you are now the president because you're the vice president." 6 months into this whole thing, he lands it right on my lap. So it was either sink or swim. Well, 30 years later, we're still swimming. We're a very active organization. So I guess, it worked out okay. But I'll never let him forget that, though. And if you go on our website and you read the history of the PSCA, I wrote that. I put it in there. Just, posterity. So anyway, I hold no grudges. You can tell. 30 years later, I'm still talking about this. But anyway, yeah, it was at the time it was overwhelming, but we made it. We made it through. So.
Well, it's really cool to see that you found a good place to represent what you believed in. And I think that protecting subluxation based chiropractic and philosophical resonance within this profession needs to be more focused on, instead of the other angles of chiropractic. Like I was talking to you off camera, like some of the groups I speak to, like how does a non-chiropractor come and talk to them about philosophy and communication, and why don't they just like do that themselves? And I
got
find
it in school. They never got it. I know it's crazy. But they never got it.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Excite Medical and the DRX 9000, Chiro HD, Softwave, Cool Blue VA, Bridge Financial, 100% Chiropractic, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, the Chiro Speaking Company, New Patients in a Box, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, Pro Hockey Chiros, Pro Baseball Chiros, and the IFCO. You can benefit from a full list of sponsors by visiting our sponsor page at chirohustle.com/sponsors. Links in the description. Now, let's hustle. Well, a lot of, I come from Palmerland, Davenport, Iowa, and I'm like, how are you finishing up with your degree at Palmer and not getting this?
Sad, isn't it? It really is.
I'm befuddled still. And how does a non-chiropractor myself come into the hornet's nest of a state association that is insurance modeled, and I'm the innocent bystander that understands communication and philosophy, that goes up there and says, hey guys, you're probably going to find some of the things I say today unpopular, but I'm going to deliver to you a message that you need. And I leave with a standing ovation, because these people are desperate for people to talk to them about the truth of this profession.
And that is what we said off camera. Even associations or groups of people that don't technically stand on our side of the spectrum when it comes to chiropractic, there are many people in those associations that are really just hungry for the philosophy of chiropractic. If anybody would just give it to them, anyone, including you, Jim, anybody, and so as a layperson, I'm sure doors open up to you that maybe wouldn't be available to me because of the positions maybe that I hold. And you can go in and tell them the story, and that's important.
The hair on my arm stands up, because I just go in there and I authentically deliver a message to them. And like this old 40-year practitioner came up to me at one of the last talks I gave, and he like hugged me and cried in my arms. And he was like, I can't believe what you said to me is happening at the schools. He's like, I'm going to get on the phone and call all these schools and ask them why they've lost their way. And I was like, bro, I don't know how to like help you more than do what I do, but this is the truth of the reality. And the dude was just like in tears after my talk with me. And I felt like this sense of urgency to continue to do better, because there's so many people out there that are unaware of where this profession is headed, and we just have to do better, man.
Well, and like I said, we need more people like you. You lit a fire. You set a spark off in that man's consciousness and his heart, and hopefully he did what he said he was going to do. That's what we need. We need that spark to just continue to perpetuate itself, because this is going to be a grassroots effort. I mean, the NBCE, the CCE, the people that control the chiropractic educational process and the licensure in the states, they don't see chiropractic the way we see chiropractic. So it's against us, and we need to fight that, in my opinion.
Well, there's a story that I got clearance to share with this guy. A lot of people that have tracked our show know that I go out and I do chiropractic marketing events and I schedule new patients. And this guy came up to me 7 years later. He's like, hey man, I was hoping I was going to see you sometime. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, 7 years ago, you scheduled me into this chiropractic clinic and it saved my life. I'm like, tell me more. And anyways, I use him in my talks now, but this guy, and I never really get to meet the people that I schedule. It's like catch and release for me. I get them into the office, they show up, and the doc, if they're good enough, they, retain this person as a new patient and a client, and they start them with care. This guy's like, dude, I was on the brink of suicide, a divorce, and bankruptcy all in one. And he's like, you told me to go into this chiropractic clinic and they may be able to help me. He goes, that doctor that you signed me up with changed my life. And he's like,
make you feel, Jim?
He's like I was like, dude, I don't get to meet people that I do this work for. And he's like, I've been by, because I met him at the Alaska State Fair, and he's like, I've been by and saw you like another time or two, and I didn't stop because you're so busy. He's like, but this time I walked by and you weren't busy, so I wanted to just tell you thank you. And
let me tell you something. There are probably many more stories like that you'll never know of lives that you changed.
Yeah. And that's why, me hosting a show where I talk to chiropractors about this beautiful profession of chiropractic that needs to be front and center. And we need to talk about these things and make cultural conversation on what this profession's all about. Like, I think that that's the real value that people need. So any of these licensing boards or regulators of the schools, like, they need to listen to Chiro Hustle. Like, put this in the ear of the people that are in there trying to remove philosophy and subluxation and innate intelligence and universal intelligence. Put this episode in their ear, and then they'll be like, wow, this profession really matters, and we don't need to remove this philosophical approach to this amazing profession of chiropractic. And
I agree.
That's a part where I am more of a straight than a mixer, but I'm a patient, man. So I think that people are sicker than ever, and that we need multiple ways to take care of people without cutting it out, drugging it out, or burning it out. And that's a Les Brown quote. Like, he said, I love chiropractic because it doesn't cut it out, drug it out, or burn it out. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And when you find a luminary like Les Brown talking about this beautiful profession of chiropractic for the purposes that it doesn't take anything out of the body, it just restores the body back to its best ability to adapt. Like, how? Like, we need more people to hear that. And that's really why I love hosting chiropractors like yourself, because we get to talk about these things that really matter in a cultural context that people can say, yeah, I'm in agreement with that. Yeah, I want to nod my head to that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The problem is that there's not enough. Let me put it this way: there's not enough people, both chiropractors in my profession and lay people like yourself, who are telling that story. And that's the problem. It's not the story's beautiful. The story makes sense. The story, it's logical. But if you don't tell the story, nobody's going to ever know the story. It's not necessarily intuitive. Like, they're just going to roll over one night and say, oh, chiropractic removes the interference in my nervous system, allows better communication between my brain and my body, and therefore my body functions at a higher level, and I reach my genetic and God-given potential. I mean, that's just not, they're not going to roll over in bed one night and think about that. But we have to tell that story. And even chiropractors that are on our side of the spectrum who know the story don't always tell the story, not because they just don't know how to tell the story. They're just not good communicators. And so, there's that perspective as well.
Well, it's hard to impress upon people your belief systems when everybody has their own agenda today, and everybody's getting information from so many different outlets. Like, the chiropractic message just has to be front and center, and it has to be delivered by the voice of chiropractors. And I think really that's the real anchor of what we do with Hustle, is we allow the chiropractor to talk about their careers and why they do what they do and why they love this profession. And those messages need to just be disseminated more freely. So I do want to transition a bit and talk to you about the chiropractic digital brochures that you created, because I'm totally unaware of what you're doing with that and why you decided that this was an important part of your life now.
Well, it's a great segue because we were just talking about telling the story, right? And one of the ways throughout the last 31 plus years I've told the story, multiple ways, but one of them is through the written word, handouts, things that I had written, things that I had purchased that were written, brochures that people could read to educate themselves. They could also take to give to a person to educate them about subluxation, about chiropractic. But what I've noticed over the last 10 years, maybe 10 to 15 years, is that these brochures are not being read. They're too wordy, they're too long. People's attention spans have literally gotten shorter and shorter. I mean, statistically shorter and shorter, not just figuratively. And then if a person would take a brochure and have all the great intentions of bringing it to a friend or family member, between my office and that friend or family member, there's about a 50% chance, maybe more, that brochure doesn't make it there, right? So I started to see these trends. How do I fix this? This is a part of my practice. I educate. That's what I do. My mission statement is to glorify God by educating and adjusting. So I even have education in front of adjustment, educating and adjusting as many families as possible. So, I was losing a big media for education that I've used all these years. So I thought, you know what? Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's reading on their phone. Everybody is checking emails, and they come in the office, they're on their phone. I said, we've got to do this. We got to digitize this. We got to create subluxation centered content that is short, sweet, to the point, visually appealing, and digital, where they could take their phone, they scan the QR code, and boom, the digital brochure is on their phone. It has the office's logo, phone number. It literally now can be interactive, which it is. It interacts with the office's website. And of course I wrote them all, so they're all focused on subluxation, right?
So what have been some of your biggest challenges on integrating this more into the chiropractic world?
Well, first of all, I've been using it for almost a year, beta testing it with about 3 or 4 other offices. I launched it in February of this year, so okay. I am having some obstacles. One is getting my name out, getting that this product exists. Jim, there is no other digital brochure available for chiropractors. There isn't one. I'm the only game in town. The problem is people don't know it even exists. They have no idea it exists. They have no idea. And once they learn how it exists, my next obstacle is to show them how it integrates and works in the office, because it's such a new thing for people. It's like, well, how does this actually work? And so these are the two biggest obstacles: getting people to know that there is now I wrote 33 brochures. Now 33, you know that number, right? The 33 principles. Mm-hmm. So I had to write. I couldn't write 30. I couldn't write 34. I had to write 30. It's just me. What can I say? And how do I get people to know that, hey, there is a digital version of these brochures that people actually read, because they're short, they're sweet, they're on their phone, and they can text it to the person that they're thinking about. They don't have to carry it to the person they're thinking about. They just text it right there in the office to the person that they want to send it to.
Yeah, I think that's, I was talking about this earlier with one of my friends, and I was like, hey man, if we text like 5 to 6 times, by the seventh time, somebody's sending me a link.
Hmm.
Like it's a Instagram reel that somebody's sending me a link. It's a meme. Somebody's like sending me like something to interact and communicate. Like people communicate now with links.
Mhm.
So if you're texting with somebody and you don't get a link from them within the seventh text, they're failing the text game with you. So we need to integrate people with your links to where people can say, hey, check out this, because the more that you get that shared, the more that brand will grow. And I do believe, honestly, George, that people are communicating with links and short reels more than ever before. And like you said, the attention spans have like diminished.
Yes.
So if we can give them something that we can all share that makes sense to us as I guess a fundamentalist group of chiropractic that doesn't want the philosophy to get watered down or, gather dust on the shelf, we should all be sharing your links, and we should be like sending it to 2 to 3 people a day, even, so people can at least get, to see what it's all about. How easy is it if you sent me a link for me to get one to share it?
If you want to just talk for 30 more seconds, you'll have one on your phone. How's that? That's how easy it is.
Cool. So
It's-
I'll make it my nighttime job after our show's over to send this to 5 people. And
Okay.
then, we'll see how that transitions. I'll say, hey, share this with 5 people. And I'll see how quickly the ripple effect goes from my friends to their friends, and see how quickly people start downloading this link. Because I do think as a whole and as a community, we need more content that travels back to the root, which is what we want to protect, which is a sacred trust, which is subluxation based chiropractic. We want to talk the innate intelligence and universal intelligence, and we need people to have something to share as resources for that. And I don't know where else I'm going to get that except for if I create it myself.
Well, that's why I created it, and I just sent it to you, and it's on your phone right now. And I said there were 33 of them. I just chose the subluxation brochure, digital brochure, so you now have it, and you can share it with anybody in the world at any time.
Well, isn't that really cool though, that like we have the chance to connect? We've been in each other's ecosystem for many years now. This is your first appearance on the Chiro Hustle podcast. You get a chance to talk about something that's near and dear to your heart, not only your career, but the organizations that you've been a part of. And I think that, it's about time. And I think that everything in this lifetime is timing. And we should have more resources that talk about the beautiful things that we both appreciate, which is chiropractic. But I think that people don't understand it. Like I was saying, I would go down to the bar and I would talk to the bartender 10 years ago in Chicago or 15 years ago in Chicago. And I'd say, hey, man, I work at the clinic down the street. Do you know anything about chiropractic? And they'd be like, if I get in a car crash, maybe.
Yep. Classic.
And I'm like, that's not what they told me at the clinic I work at. they told me that we help people with this thing called subluxation, and that's like talking a foreign language to people. So I think it's really great that we've gone to this point in chiropractic that we have something to share easily that talks about subluxation.
Well, speaking about that, the Palmetto State Chiropractic Association just this year has started a campaign of subluxation awareness in our state. We've done billboards across the state. People have seen them. We're going to start doing social media and are focused on our state because we're a state association. At least now we'll focus on our state. Who knows where that will lead? So we need to get the word out. I mean, people don't know what it is. They don't know how it affects them. They have absolutely no clue whatsoever. And they won't ever unless we tell them.
I can tell you that the shoulders that you stand on are the shoulders I stand on. And as chiropractors say, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we have to tell the story. So I think you're doing an amazing job of doing that and standing in the gap when called upon, and doing the work and helping support the Palmetto State Association, the IFCO, and Sherman College. And I think that 31 years in practice is really cool. And I'm just thankful to have you on our show as episode 657. At this juncture, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
No, just that it's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. So thank you for the invitation. Two kindred spirits from different backgrounds, but here we are. And I love that about chiropractic, particularly our version, our version of chiropractic. So thank you, Jim.
Yeah, we just need to integrate subluxation, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence back into the schools that are losing their way, because the future chiropractor is today. And we need to have an impact on this next generation of chiropractic so the philosophy doesn't slip away. And I think that the work that we can continuously do together will make an impact to make that a reality. And I thank you for being on with us today. And I close out the same way I always do. And I tell people, you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. Thanks for your time today, Doc. And I will be in contact with you soon. Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.